For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Due Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Due Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Due Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
Welcome this morning on this beautiful March morning at 10:07 a.m. to another edition of Due Hockey Hotline. I am your host, Matt Diegert, and as always, I have my co-host with me, Beyond716 on Twitter. Brian, how are you this morning?
Doing well. It's 7:07 a.m. here in the Los Angeles area. 43 degrees this morning. Had it rain all week. Feels like a Western New York kind of week this week up here. You guys are getting better weather than we are, so I'm happy.
Yeah,
for
a little
you,
bit.
so.
A little bit.
Good to hear.
I'm excited for the nice weather. I think it was like 60 degrees yesterday. I gotta prepare for the my Pinto Ron bet that I had that I lost. So
wait a minute. What is Pinto Ron? What? I already feel ketchup and mustard. Are you serious?
That's exactly what it was. I took the Steelers. I took the Steelers over the Ravens with our one of our hosts on No One to Blame, our gambling show, and lost that bet. And I gotta get Pinto Ron, so that's gonna be coming up here soon.
Tremendous.
So not a happy camper about that, but you know what are you gonna do? You got to pay your bets. I just paid my thigh dance bet to Thigh Doctor. So for Von Miller not getting enough sacks, he did get 6. I think if he would have been in those 4 games, he would have had the 10.5. But we those are some of the great things that we do here on Due Champions. So definitely join us. Give us a like, subscribe, whatever you want to do on our YouTube, Twitter, anywhere else. But this morning we are talking some Sabres hockey and some of the fallout still from the trade deadline with the Dylan Cousins going to the Senators, Josh Norris coming here to Buffalo, and not a big surprise to myself, but maybe to some other people. Eric Brandstrom playing very well in the AHL. So we'll get to some of that here as we go. But Brian, what are we thinking as Sabres fans over these last 18 or so games?
Well, I mean, this past week is sort of a microcosm of who the Sabres are, right? Monday night, they play a solid game against Edmonton, one of UPL's better games of his career, if you want to ask me, against, a high-powered Edmonton offense where they had a lot of top-notch chances in that game. And then they followed up with a dreadful showing at Detroit, all across the board, by the defense, by UPL, by really everybody, right? It's just that's constant seesaw when you feel like, you have a nice effort, right? You figure go on the road against a Detroit team that's fighting for the playoffs. I mean,
wearing the goat head, feeling
yeah, like just okay. And then they just lay an egg, and that's just kind of just comes with the territory as the Sabres have been. We're 14 points out of the last playoff spot. It's kind of dreadful right now in that case. So it's really hard to gauge this team going forward the last 18 games. There's just little nuggets that you look for, right? Like we talked about Josh Norris, like how is he going to fit in with Tage Thompson? And they put him on the top line with Tage. And honestly, it's been pretty good so far. I mean, so maybe that's a positive sign going forward, see what you got for 2025. But, again, we've seen Dylan Cousins look like the Dylan Cousins that we thought he would be since he left. But 2 things can be true, Matt. Maybe both guys will work out for both franchises. We'll have to see. So,
well, and that's the nice thing about a hockey trade, right? Is you're not trying to. It's not like a rental guy where one team is trying to get a first round pick or multiple picks for a superstar player that's on an expiring contract. That this was a true hockey trade, and it was Josh Norris for Dylan Cousins for Josh Norris, and his name JBD. His name
JBD.
Right now, but
He was at practice yesterday too,
Yeah.
right? So we'll see.
Finally got the immigration stuff taken care of. But I mean, Dylan Cousins is and yes, two things can be true, but also it just kind of reiterates the whole Sabres players going to other places and succeeding. I mean, he has four points plus 5 in his first 3 games or 4 games or whatever he's played with Ottawa right now. He's almost a 60% face-off guy right now. He's a plus 5.
That's the part that shocks me.
He's averaging almost 16 minutes a game. So, I mean, it's, maybe he's slotted in the right position now in Ottawa where he wasn't in Buffalo. So,
Yep.
Who knows? But also, too, it could be like that whole, adrenaline thing where, yes, I get it. Adrenaline wears off. But, but what I kind of mean by that is, he's in a new place. He's on this, high of highs right now. And the bottom hasn't fallen out from under him yet. So, you're maybe seeing, the Dylan Cousins of old a little bit because he's just not thinking and going playing hockey. And maybe it was too big of a weight on his shoulders to be part of a rebuild or retool or turnaround or whatever you want to call it for the Buffalo Sabres. Maybe that was weighing too heavy on him, and he felt like he had to do too much, maybe gripping the stick too tight. So I mean, maybe it's a bunch of those things, and multiple things of those could be true. When we sit down and talk about it. But you mentioned the Edmonton game. I want to talk about that this week because a lot of people on Twitter. I was talking on Twitter and. There was some guy that said, I think it was Jay Skursky who said UPL is bad. And I replied and said, that I've been saying it for months, because it's true. It's the outlier is starting to become his 4 months of game time last year, or 3 months, those last 3 months of the season and right around January when he, something seemed to click for him. But that click went away. And, that's why I said, let's sign him to, like we always talk about, let's sign him to a 2-year deal, that bridge style deal, and see if it ends up working out so that, if you need to get away from him or, get rid of him, you have the ability to trade him easier, or you can buy him out easier, or you can do all sorts of things that the NHL allows you to do so you can, bring somebody else in. That's another hockey trade I'd love to see. Two floundering goaltenders right now that both might need a change of scenery, might need different voice on them or anything like that in Thatcher Demko and UPL. Maybe just flip those guys and see if that Vancouver would be willing to do something like that because they got similar contracts. I think Demko has 1 year left on his deal.
1 year, $5 million. Yes, and then he's an unrestricted free agent.
So you're talking about the same deal. So if you bring him in, he's got that 1 year, and if by some miracle he's the goaltender that works out until Devin Levi is ready, maybe sign him for a 2-year deal, and he can back up Devin Levi when he's ready. So because I truly do think that Devin Levi is the answer, but he's not there yet. I truly think he needs another year of seasoning in the AHL, and potentially, work his way back up. I heard Marty Biron talking about it. There's goaltenders now that are you can't jump the process, right? There's only a few goaltenders: Marc-Andre Fleury, Carey Price, goaltenders like that jumped the line and came in at 18, 19 years old, and we're not very good. I can name only a handful of goaltenders on my hand. Marty Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, Carey Price, Marc-Andre Fleury. That's about all I can name that came in and were really, really good from the jump. So, maybe Devin Levi does need that seasoning. Maybe he needs that to, it's an acclimation of the speed and everything like that. So hopefully that helps and he gets that additional seasoning in the AHL. Hopefully they leave him down there next year until he's actually ready. So that's really my point is get somebody in here because we can't have another season of UPL playing like this. That game is probably, if they don't hit 2 of those posts, that game's a 4-3 game. Like, everybody's acting like UPL had this amazing game and he stole the game and everything else. We forget they hit the post 4 times in all 3 periods. And they score 1 of those, it's a tie game. They score 2 of those, it's, because Draisaitl doesn't usually miss. McDavid usually doesn't miss like that. They hit the posts. Yeah. So I just don't. I don't take that as a he stole the game, because the goals that he gave up were typical UPL goals, and they were what do you want to call it? The lack of concentration that I talk about all the time on here, that he just like goes in and out of the game for whatever reason, and like I don't understand why he does it or anything like that. So I'm just at a loss for words. I really wonder how you feel about that.
Well, the thing about UPL, I feel like what I feel about 60 to 70%. This is UPL this year, right? I do agree the majority of the play that he is not showing is on his shoulders, right? He could definitely make better saves. I think he's got to clean up the little details of his game, right, Matt? He can't. Like, if you're going to score to make it difficult, right? That's always the best thing, right? You mentioned too, you're right too, about being a young goalie and things like that. I mean, even guys like Vasilevsky, right? Just a more recent ilk. Like, he around 23 is when he started ascending. But here's the difference, Matt. When he was 23, the Tampa Bay Lightning were building an excellent hockey team around him. The Buffalo Sabres, where Devin Levi's 23, is a whole different ball of wax right now. So right now is not the time to throw him into this environment while the team is 14 points out of the playoffs, right? You're not going to always get that consistent effort every single night.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And the thing about UPL, listen, he does have to clean things up. We do need, Matthias Samuelsson right now, for me, I got to tell you, we talked about Dylan Cousins not being a right fit. Matthias Samuelsson is like times 10 that for me. I mean, he's just not. I can't find any enduring quality about him on the ice right now at a professional level. I just don't see it. Like, again, is it just a confidence thing? Is he lost it mentally? I don't know where this Matthias Samuelsson is that we saw the first year and a half. He was a Sabre. It's gone. And those things got to be cleaned up. And I know it's just one guy, but we all know how hockey is, right? If the Sabres, I still feel like if they could replace a couple of those guys with more responsible defensive players, like JBD, who we have coming up, or Brandstrom, who you mentioned, who's in Rochester, right? Those things can make a big difference, right? Heck, we even saw what the Gilbert guy did, Dennis Gilbert did when he came up here. He only played like 7 or 8 minutes a night, but he made a difference, right? So those things got to happen for sure. And about the contracts, I still think with Dylan Cousins too. That's set when they gave him that long-term deal. That, I feel like I call that the Ryan Fitzpatrick syndrome. I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Yep. But like the second Ryan Fitzpatrick signed that contract, Ryan Fitzpatrick went, right? Yeah. Maybe it was a mental thing or whatever, but maybe it was just too much for Cousins, and that's where I would have said, hey, give him a 3 or 4 year extension. Give him the commitment, but don't overcommit, right. And maybe that. I think Dylan's a good guy, good kid. I wish him all the best. I really do. I don't think he's a guy that was not giving an effort, things like that. I think he really wanted to do it. And for some reason, it just wasn't clicking here. He needed to change the scenery. Right. So just to kind of back up there was a lot to unpack. So I was going to my mind, but yeah. And again, just kind of back to UPL. His contract it's a couple of years, but I still think, again, there's a will, there's a way, Matt, right? We've seen other teams move worse contracts. Mm-hmm. Right. And I know the whole NTC, no trades and all that, and palm trees, and you don't have sandy beaches and all that. I'm being sarcastic, right? But when there's a will, there's a way. And I think the Sabres have the prospect pool to add some pieces to that with these guys like a Matthias Samuelsson to get it done. You got to find the GM that has to want to get it done. And we're going to get into that in a little bit in terms of that as well.
See, and here's really the thing that I want to say is the palm trees and the beaches and the, whatever. is no longer an excuse now that you signed Jordan Greenway and Jason Zucker, who prove that they want to be here. There's guys that want to be here. So you have to go find those guys that want to be here and are not chasing the money. They're not chasing, anything, other than a Stanley Cup and trying to come in and help turn around an organization. Like, I get that completely. And not everybody's mentally strong enough to do it. We truly see that. We saw that with Dylan Cousins, unfortunately. Because, like I said earlier in the show, I truly think that it was a lot of weight on his shoulders, and it's a lot of weight on a lot of these guys' shoulders. And they're continuing to lose, and it just keeps spiraling and spiraling. Now that you put somebody like Dylan Cousins on a team that's potentially playoff bound, and they're fighting for a playoff spot, and they're not like 7 points out and have to win the last 6 games like the Sabres were in 2022. Even though they almost did it, they lost to what? They lost to I can't remember who they lost to. The Devils. They lost to the Devils that year. That essentially knocked them out of the playoffs. But when it comes down to it, they're within a point or two, and they can, just hop right in there, and they're going into a playoff spot, coming out of a playoff spot, going in. So if they can get enough movement from Dylan Cousins or help from Dylan Cousins, then he doesn't have to worry about being on a losing team anymore. So, that I think that kind of washes his mind a little bit. I know you can't, throw your brain in a sink and wash it and forget these things, but it kind of basically does a mental reset for him. And that's what happens, and you see it all across sports. That's why you see it, in college with these guys. Yes, they're chasing the money a little bit, but they're trying to go from, losing colleges and colleges that are not, out there to, higher end top SEC Power 5 teams. So, I mean, you see it all the time. So I really think that's going to help Dylan Cousins. I think that he's going to succeed. And I don't think it is just some of that, that first few game, high end, whatever.
Yep.
So,
and he's also thrusted into a playoff race too, which is a jolt. Right. Because that whole team is energized right now, right, to push for a playoffs. Where in Buffalo, you may have some guys it's a little bit of a mix, right? Some guys are thinking about Cancun, right, or vacation. Some other guys are thinking, do I really want to put my body on the line at this point of the season when we're 14 points out of the playoffs, right? That's just an honest. If you're in any environment that you're in at your work or whatever, if like, I don't know, let's say you give your 2 weeks notice, right? Are you really going to put forward your best foot forward, like, for the rest of your time there? Probably not, right? I mean, you'll probably go through the maintenance. You'll just go through what you have to go through or something. Right. So, yeah. So it's hard to really truly assess what's going on with the Sabres right now.
I go back to the Office, with Michael Scott, when he quit Dunder Mifflin and sitting there drinking Scotch and Splenda, So I mean, it's kind of that way though. It truly is you're thinking about vacation, you're thinking about hitting the links and all that type of stuff. What are we going to do in the off season? And yes, they have so many games left, but how much bandwidth do the players still have left at this point? And that's why I'm not blaming them. I'd like to see them, put their best foot forward the rest of the season, but it's tough to do that when you're now in a 14-year playoff drought. Like almost 99 point whatever officially in that 14th year of a playoff drought. So
you're telling me there's still a chance, right? Like .001.
I think that they'd have to win like every single game, but yeah.
Hey, the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals on September 11th, I'll never forget it, had a 0.1% chance to make the playoffs. And some guy, did you ever hear that story? A guy put down like huge bets on them to win the National League and the World Series. And they ended up doing it. They came all the way back. They got in, and I know different sport, different time, but I'll tell you that's
it was something like $40,000 or plus 40,000, and he was and he put like $100 on it or something like that. Ended up winning like 40 grand or something. It was crazy. So
You never know, but I wish, but
Yeah.
especially for our viewers and the content creators and everybody. That's who I really feel bad for too. It's like even watching the Sabres, like I like Dunleavy and Ray, and you could just I love the I call Rob Ray's grunt. That when a goal goes in, right? You just know he's feeling it. Like Ray's Ray is that kind of player that he loves this organization. He knows what it's like when Buffalo is to win and see this city, and it's got to be eating him inside, right? As a former player, so it's tough, and it's But I will say, and I don't know if you want to segue to it. There's something that happened this week that got a lot of attention in Saberland that I honestly think may be one of the best things we've seen all year. And Paul Bissonnette came out with his thing about Rasmus Dahlin and the meaning between him and Kevin Adams. Now he mentioned that Dahlin said he wanted out. Now Dahlin quickly refuted it with the media about he didn't say that, right? But I'm going to circle back, man. I want to get your opinion. I think this development is great. That's what I want from my captain. I want him going into the GM saying this is not acceptable, right? Now, about him being out right now, he's in year 1 of his 8-year deal. I'm sorry, if Rasmus Dahlin wants out, I think that's Bush League at this point. You just signed your contract, right? You chose to sign for 8 years. Nobody put nobody put it to you, said a knife to you, say you have to sign for 8 years. He chose to do that, right? So if he wants to be here. Maybe if it's like year 3 or year 4, like Eichel, that's different, right? You've been here a few years, you're like, this is not working. But I want my captain, I want other players, I want Tuck to go in to Adams' office and say, listen, this isn't acceptable. I'm not standing for this, right? I want to see Tage Thompson do that.
And as much as Alex Tuck, because Alex Tuck only has the 1 year left on his deal, I could honestly see him going into the office and asking for mention of what Kevin Adams has planned before he signs any more of a long term deal, even a bridge deal, like a 3-year deal, because he's at the I don't want to say end of his prime, but he's at the backside of his prime in NHL land. So he's 28 now, right? Tuck. I don't know when his birthday is, but he's going to go about 29 or 30 years old by the time he hits UFA. So he's going to be 30 years old when he's a UFA. Yep.
So that's, I would say ideally, if you're Sabres, you want to give him 4 years if you can. Maybe 4 to 5 at most. I would say 4 is better. 7.5 maybe. If you can get away with it. It makes 4.8 million now, Matt. How high are you going on Dahlin? I mean, not Dahlin. Excuse me, Tuck. If you were Kevin Adams,
probably between 4.8 and 6 at the
very. So you don't want to even go over 6 at this point, right? I would do it. If I would slightly overpay for him if I had to, because I think he's a guy that. But it's going to be interesting to see. How that's going to be handled, right? Because
that's kind of me. Like, if I saw it tomorrow and they re-signed into an extension, it was, they went 7. Okay. Like, I get it. Like, I'm fine with that. But, like, I'm not, like, if I was on the negotiating table and I was at 5 and he was at 7, I'd be like, okay, let's meet in the middle at 6 and be done. I don't want to go over that, like, 6 million, per year at AAV for Alex Tuck.
Yep.
Because it's a nice little raise, but also he's at the back end of his prime. By the end of the deal, he's going to be 30. If it's a 4-year deal, he'll be 34, 35 years old. If it's a 5-year deal, so I mean, you got to be able to work that in there. And that's kind of like a thing with Kevin Adams is you prove 6 months of or 4 months of good hockey, he's going to pay you, a 7-8 year deal, and you're going to turn around and not be a good player anymore. Like it's becoming a pattern, and it's, but I mean,
Matt, the other thing is too, he'll never have more value than he will this summer.
Oh, Alex
Tuck. Yeah. If the Sabres were looking to let's say we talked about Elias Pettersson, right? We talked about guys like that. Like Alex Tuck is that kind of guy right now that has that value. He's only making $4 million next year, 4.7, and his production. But at the same time, I feel like he's the kind of guy that at least gives us that inkling that he wants to be here, right? And you talked about that, right? We talk about that a lot with the Bills, right? Where the Bills identify it's not even so much talent, it's also, do you want to be here, right? Why did they sign Josh Palmer? Why did, he's a Canadian, he's from Ontario, right? I'm sure that played into it, right? I mean, I'm not saying that's the only reason they signed him, but I'm sure those things all together, there's a formula, right? And the Sabres need to enact that formula for them and say, okay, let's identify these particular, what are Sabry type players? We always said Sabry, right? Sabry. But who's a Billsy player? Who's a Sabry player?
Hey,
Brian,
Brian, I'm starting to fall asleep. Let me grab my PEDs.
Oh, here's our Bills. I got a little extra in here this morning, right? Yeah. A little creatine in here.
I'm sure you guys
for 6 weeks now on the pod?
I'm sure you guys will be talking about that a little bit more on Coast to Coast, and we'll be talking about that tonight with Ryan Talbot tonight on Third and Manageable. So definitely check those out. Definitely we'll get back to some Sabres talk here in a second. We just want to touch on our sponsors real quick.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliott Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Due Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Due Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Due Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, and again, we'll be live tonight. Third Manageable podcast live tonight from Elliott Apollo's. So definitely stop down, have some beverages and some food. One of the best places that in Western New York for restaurant dining. So definitely stop into there. Title sponsor of the show. Definitely want to thank them. But with that being said, let's get back to some of this Buffalo Sabres talk. And let's talk about the other side of that Dylan Cousins deal so far. Because it's only been 3 games. Josh Norris has played in all 3. But also, too, something that came out yesterday is Lindy Ruff said that Josh Norris is already getting checked out injury-wise. Apparently it's been something he's been dealing with for a little while, but at the same time, I'd hate to see them shut him down at this point and, move into next year. But if that's the option to keep him the healthiest, then I'm perfectly fine with it. He's got 2 points, but he is a -1, but he does have a little bit of better face-off percentage. It's a small sample size because it has only been 3 games, but he definitely is right around that average that he's at, is that 54-55% face-off, which is, and then we see him, in these past 3 games, we see him play that 200-foot game of hockey, which is something that this team desperately needs. They need guys centers that are playing the 200-foot. You see it from Ryan McLeod. He, as fast as he is, he gets back on these fast breaks and helps out as much as he can. But I don't know if you saw it, but you gotta want players like Cale Makar on your team. You saw that amazing defensive play from him. He gave up the puck in a 2-on-0 and skated back into the play, made it a 2-on-1, and prevented the first pass went to the guy on his right. He went down, prevented everything from happening, got the puck back, and went down and created the goal on the other end. That's 200-foot hockey. That's true 200-foot hockey, and these guys are only on the ice for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute and minute and 10 seconds, depending on the coach, depending on the time that it is, depending if it's a power play or not. But that's the type of hockey that you want, and that's the type of hockey that this team needs. And you got to find those type players, and that's the type of game you want to see from somebody like your Rasmus Dahlin, your Owen Power, your Josh Norris, your Tage Thompsons. And that's the type of hockey that you need to be playing to be able to be playing in May and June.
100%. 100%. I mean, even another example, remember the Sabres Tampa Bay game last week where Eric Chernak made that huge block on Tage Thompson.
Yep.
At the end of the game. Those are the kind of guys I want on this team. Like those guys that are just, and I think the Sabres do have some guys like that. I'm not saying they don't. They do. It's just, we need more. Like, again, that's the whole thing that the next GM, which I'm still hoping is what we get into. And I still think there's a shot at that. I'm starting to change on that. I change on it every week. Right.
There's no shot. There's no shot.
You really don't think so, huh?
I think there's no shot, and
this is where the players have to rise up. They got to rise up here and say, "Hey, you know."
But the way that Kevin Adams talked, he does not sound like he's a guy on a hot seat because, and I do think that there is some sort of synergy there between Pegula and Kevin Adams because he said it even in his press conference. And yes, you kind of have to take him at his word on it. Because what's going to happen? He goes out and lies in the public, and Terry Pegula is probably going to, say something to him at some point if he's lying about stuff, So, but I truly, you truly, until something's proven differently, you got to take him at his word for it. And the fact that he said that he has daily conversations with Terry Pegula, and Pegula has tough conversations with him, and he has, he lets him know of what the plan is and everything else. So you got to kind of take him at his word for it. It didn't sound at all like he was, in any sort of way going to be looking for a new job during the summer. So I just do I wish it happened? Absolutely. I wish they would move on. I wish they would start over. I wish they would hire a hockey ops guy and then let him hire a GM. And then go from there. And we've been saying it on this show for months that's the way that we wish that they would go. And Buchagras actually just tweeted it out the other day, how to fix the Sabres. They need to bring in basically calling for Kevin Adams' job. So I mean it's not unheard of that that's the way that this team is going to be fixed.
Yep. Yeah, and there's we talk a lot about the players, but there are a lot of factors that go into why the Sabres, right, are not performing, right? There was another article this week, Matt, from a guy named Ryan S. Clark. Not Ryan Clark, the guy. I think there's two Ryan Clarks at ESPN, right? I think there's the football Ryan Clark, right? And then there's the Ryan Clark, the NHL writer, but talked about the never-ending rebuild for the Sabres. There were some interesting nuggets in there, right? Yeah. Not that I always agree with everything the media says and everything, but, with this team, I know there's a lot of deniers out there, but Brandon Montour had some very interesting comments, about the Sabres in his time. And he said, in Buffalo, when I was there, you win a couple games, then you lose a couple games, and it's like an automatic change. I wasn't there long, but there's change all the time. Now, Montour didn't trash Buffalo as a city or anything. He enjoyed his time there, but I think he just felt, the structure wasn't there, right? He tells, he always said, he said it's a pretty damn good place to play, the passion of the fans and stuff like that. So that's not the problem here. He's not, the players, I don't think they really feel it's a bad place to play. It's just that this organization doesn't have the structure. Other nugget in this article that I found interesting was, now listen, I work remote, okay, 100% of the time, which my organization is perfectly fine. But I got an assistant GM in Jason Carmanos, the supposed wizard that we keep hearing about, right? He works in Pittsburgh, man. He's not even with Rochester. He rarely goes up to Rochester. He's rarely around the team. I'm sorry. I need this guy in the trenches. I need him with the Americans. I need him with the Sabres. And everybody says, well, he could do his job remote. Can he get a feel for the guys? Can he meet with some of the players like a Tuck, like a Samuelson, like a Darlene, right? And be there to help Adams in these situations and maybe get some real input in the office. Right? I can't have him on the phone or a conference call. It doesn't. And those are the little things that when you hear this organization, Matt, it irks me, right? And these are things that just aren't happening in the top organizations. I can almost guarantee you that, right? And we beat this to a drum. You hired Lindy Ruff and you don't let him hire an assistant coach. I mean, that's like saying, right. Okay, Sean McDermott, come into Buffalo. Oh, by the way, you can't pick your OC or your DC. Pagula's got that hand picked for you. You're gonna take, who's that old Bills coordinator that they had, the guy that's on the Jets, who was terrible. Nathaniel Hackett. We're going to give you Nathaniel Hackett. No questions asked. You can't make your. Could you imagine the uproar of the Bills fans if that happened? Could you imagine? I mean, what are we talking about here, right? So the players have changed. If you look at some of the players that we had about 6 or 7 years ago, you put that roster together. It's an easy playoff team for most markets, Matt.
Yeah,
it is easy.
Oh, absolutely,
easy playoff team. So it's not it's maybe it's like 20% the players. I think at this point, I think it's almost 80% management, and front office. I really do, Matt. I've really come to this conclusion. Yeah. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but
I've been there. I've been there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy to me. I think Cremanos should be. As in tune as Kevin Adams is to everything that's going on. I think he should be traveling to Rochester all the time. I think he should be I think he should be in an apartment in Rochester so he can go watch the games and see, so Kevin Adams, if he calls and says, "Hey, I need to bring somebody up," who should we be trying to bring up, or whatever the case may be. Or, hey, we're looking to trade somebody. We need to add a prospect. Who would be somebody that we should be looking to move off this team, or needs a change of scenery? Anything like that. That's the job of the AGM, and whether he's doing it or not, you can't do it remotely. Like, those are things you cannot do remotely. Yeah. Sure,
there's certain things you got to be there, get the feel. You got to be there to talk to the players, to like. Hey,
that's
guys,
exactly
gonna be okay,
point.
Or I don't get that. I don't.
Yeah, that's exactly my point, and really what it comes down to is, when you're looking at, whenever I break down film for football or anything like that, I'm not just watching the all 22. I'm watching the broadcast view. I'm watching the all 22. I'm listening to what the commentators are saying about the player. Because it's not just, oh, this is what he does on the field. It's also what they're going to be doing off of the ice. How are they interacting with the players on the bench? Are they getting these guys high? Are they looking at the tablet on the bench? Are they trying to get better on the bench? Because yes, obviously, if Josh Norris is sitting there, he's your number one center, and he just came off the ice. He's probably got 3 or 4 minutes before he's going to go on again, unless there's a penalty kill or a power play that he's a part of. So, I mean, I want these guys to be talking to each other on the bench, and you can't get that if you don't go to the games, because you don't see that. The action is always, this in hockey more than anything else. So you don't get to see what the bench looks like or anything like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, and I don't like the fact that he is in Pittsburgh. So. And working from Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just, I feel like with the Sabres, there's just a lot of timing that's a little bit off, right? In terms of, like, they got off to a good start with Eichel and Reinhart, and then they got a little bit off track, and then they decided to rebuild again when they probably should have identified their core, right? And stuck with it. They stuck with the wrong core. And then they try to add guys like Taylor Hall, and they try to mask things over. Then they punt. It's such a mess. Like, it's so messy and up and down that, I mean, to me, I think there's only one solution at this point.
Yeah.
And I think we all know what it is.
Expansion team. That's it.
Well, yeah, expansion and incorporate in Texas, so we get the tax breaks. Houston Sabres of Buffalo, right?
Yeah. But in all seriousness, though, and that's something that we got to stop doing as fans specifically, is looking at these players and taking offense to them talking bad about the Sabres. I'm a victim of it myself. Minus say, Jack Eichel, the one time he came in here, said nothing but good things about Buffalo and the fans, other than the one-off comment that he had about, the building finally being on fire when he comes back from a different team. And I get that, but we as fans have to stop, taking everything so harshly, because they're not talking about, and maybe we would understand it a little bit more, if we took it as them talking about the organization, not of the fans, because we clearly see it. It is a crap organization right now. It is hard to play for this team right now because it's 14 years of playoff drought. And, that immediately, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, that those new players that come onto this team, whether they're freshly drafted first-round picks and they're coming in, or any part of the draft, or a fresh dose of free agents or anything like that. These players are getting that thrown right on top of them, that 14-year playoff drought, and what could be 15-year playoff drought, and what could be 16 if they don't figure this out, next year. It just, that gets immediately thrust onto these players, and it's not fair, but I get it. I'm of the mind that, it gets thrown on them, and I whether I think that's right or wrong, we got to stop doing that, and realizing that, each team every year, yes, it sucks. It sucks that we are in a point where we are in a 14-year playoff drought. You want to rip on Kevin Adams because he's now been here for 6 years of the playoff drought, and he has not put a good team on the ice? Absolutely. He deserves to get fired. But don't put it on a player that's been here for a year or two. Like Zach Benson. He's been here 2 years. He's played very, very well. Look at him, what he's done on the ice, and everybody loves him, and because he's this fiery little guy, and everything like that. But what happens next year whenever he goes on a little bit of a slump where he doesn't put the puck in the net or isn't making plays or anything? We got to look at these guys on the ice and start looking at other things other than just talent, like we've been talking about all show today, is because it's not the talent. These guys are in the NHL for a reason. And sure, one player here, one player, Matthias Samuelsson, one player here, maybe get rid of him, and what happened to the Connor Clifton of old, maybe get rid of him. If he doesn't show anything more in the future, so maybe you do have to get a couple of guys, but somebody that we brought in from that trade with the Rangers, Eric Brandstrom, he's played two games. He has 4 points, 3 goals, and an assist already.
Yeah, let's bring him up. Let's see what he can do.
He's a +2. He's a +2, and that's something that I was very annoyed with one of the only things that I was annoyed with in that press conference with Kevin Adams, and I think I said it last Saturday when we had the show after the deadline special, is he immediately said he's going to Rochester. Why are you not seeing what he can do for the last so many games here with the Sabres? And he's a former first round pick. He's seeming to be a very good pickup for Rochester. It seems to be a very good trade for what they did. Avi Kubel, who wasn't doing anything, to bring in Eric Brandstrom, who's now playing on what? He's playing on the power play. He's playing second line minutes or second defensive pairing minutes, and it's to a point right now where this team needs to find answers for Dahlin, needs to find answers for Power, needs to find answers for Bowen Byram, needs to find, even if whatever you got to do, if you got to stick Bowen Byram only with Dahlin, fine. If you got to, now you're going to put Connor Clifton with Owen Power, fine. Then you got to find 2 bottom pairing defensemen. Yeah, but I think that they need to do. I think they need to bring Brandstrom up and let him see what he can do in the NHL. at this point with this team. And then, so, I mean, it just really, it really dumbfounds me that you bring in a player like that who's playing very well in the AHL. Like even with the Wolfpack earlier this year, I mean, he, it looks like he was, that was with that was when he was with the Rangers. He only played six games with them. But 8 games when he went down from the Vancouver Canucks back in December. He played 8 games with the Abbotsford Canucks. He had 2 goals, 10 assists. That's 12 points, and he was a plus 11. Like that's good hockey. Like, why are you not trying to bring somebody like that up? That is, and that's one of the things that bothers me about Kevin Adams. And one of the things that I truly think did cost him the season is not doing anything during that 13-game losing streak. Whether it's bringing somebody up, whether it's making a trade, whether it's picking up one of those guys that went on waivers, anything. He didn't do anything. And it cost them this season.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on so many fronts. I mean, there just needs to be you want to hit the balance between, you don't want to make the players feel that they're going to always clean house every time something goes wrong, right. But you also want to make it seem like this is completely unacceptable, right? Like we're not, and maybe one of the things, like, remember we missed the playoffs by a point. I felt like the Sabres were almost taking victory laps for that after the season. Now, I know we were a young team at the time, but let me ask you this, Matt. Would some of the best organizations in sports take victory laps after barely missing the playoffs?
Nope.
After how many years? No. Should have been, hey, good development, but this is still unacceptable. I'm sorry. We're gonna push further. We're gonna go eat, that aggressive nature. Like, hey, we're not happy with this. Like, okay, pushed hard, won a lot of games late, had a better year, but it's almost like they were like, oh, that's great. Let's get everybody pat on the back. You almost made the playoffs. I mean, they should have hung a banner, almost playoff before, that's what I was feeling like, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what else needs to happen, where, again, you find that balance between, okay, maybe we're going to keep things in place, and you should feel comfortable in the sense of, we believe in you. You don't feel comfortable in the sense you're just going to sit back and do the same old things, but you're not going to feel comfortable. And we got to change your mindset that losing is not acceptable, period.
Right. And
doesn't mean you're going to get moved.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing, is the losing culture here has to change. And whether that's, we thought that was changing when they went to, we're just going to go mainly all kids, right? We'll be the youngest team in the NHL. We're going to let them grow, and we're going to let them play together, and we're going to continue to move forward that way. And then they for whatever reason, they changed, everybody got hurt last year. So, like, I can't really blame them last year. Jack Quinn was hurt. Tage Thompson was hurt a lot of the season. UPL, I think, got hurt. It was down the roster. You had to, you always had somebody that was good, that was out. And they had to bring players in, and they had to, so I get where they were going last year, but they completely almost reversed course this year by bringing in Jason Zucker, by bringing in other players that are a little bit older, and it's just sticking with Greenway, and it's just to me, like, pick a plan and stick to it and continue. And I truly do think that is on Kevin Adams. I really do. And my thing, and that I say to you all the time, and I say on this show, is that 2022 season, I think that was it for me, for Kevin Adams personally. Like, he's here, so I'm putting up with it, because what am I going to do? Go protest it in front of the French Connection statue? Nobody's going to listen to me. Like,
hey, you can do a podcast. Listen, Saturday morning, we'll have you out there with a little table, right? We'll get the gear, we'll get the Due Champion stuff, and we'll say, hey, come on down and protest with us in front of right, Seymour Knox Plaza.
In front of Perot, Martin, and
Richard Martin, Robert.
Robert.
There you go.
why
That's
was
like
I
the
drawing
three
a blank
tenors
on
and
it?
the other guy. Yeah, you can't remember. There's always like one
Right.
you can't remember, right? Always one.
But that's
name.
the thing. That's the thing is, it's that was when I was truly out on Kevin Adams, and I wanted him to be fired after that year, just because he didn't do anything. He acquired Jordan Greenway. That was it. And you're in a playoff spot, and you're in a playoff push, a playoff hunt, whatever you want, in the hunt. For any Bills fans out there listening, that we heard all the time in the 17-year playoff drought, the in the hunt graphic and everything like that. But it's true. The Sabres were in the hunt that year. They were in the playoff chase, and they just couldn't get that extra. And I truly think that Kevin Adams failing to bring in additional talent that year, whether it be a Brock Besser, whether it have been, any of those guys, to give them a little bit of extra jolt. Because Jordan Greenway he played well. He played his defensive style game. He played, but he didn't do anything. He didn't score a lot of goals. He didn't help them on the offensive side, because if, you bring in a player that could have scored, and made up for that Hudson Fashion kick, then, maybe we're not talking about a 14-year playoff drought. Maybe we're talking about, guys that are still around, and maybe last year doesn't turn out as bad as it did with injuries and, whatever the case may be. And you can play the, hindsight 2020 or the woulda, shoulda, coulda game. But that was when I was truly out on Kevin Adams as a general manager, by him not, and even though the team did well, but as we saw, next year is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Do what you can today to fix the team and make the team better. Do whatever you have to do. Trade first round pick. Trade your first, couple of picks. Do whatever you have to do to bring in a rental player. That was the year for a rental player to get over the hump. And if it didn't work, fine. You tried. But for him to not get things done and not try like that's what put me out on Kevin Adams altogether. But speaking of Kevin Adams, let's play a little bit of a game here. So it's always fun every year, as Sabres fans, when we get to do it around January. We start around January running the simulator. So let me pull up the simulator real quick.
It's back again.
It's back. It's back. It's back.
You know what it reminds me? It's like when that alarm clock goes off at Groundhog Day and Bill Murray wakes up and he eventually just destroys me. So that's what it feels like with this tankathon. Here it comes again, Matt. Oh, absolutely. There it is.
So we got
the
tankathon up.
By the way, I love how it has a taxan on the bottom. How fitting for Kevin Adams, right?
So we're gonna run this 3 times. We're gonna start doing this today. We're gonna start running this 3 times. Until the lottery is chosen.
Draw. Yep.
So let me go ahead and I'm gonna run it 3 times, and we'll see where the Sabres hit. If we get first overall, then we will end it there with that, and we will continue on talking about some other stuff and what's going on for the Sabres this week. But let's run the simulator. Buffalo is 4th.
All right.
Buffalo is 5th.
Okay. Stay in the top 5.
Well, I got to run it one more time, or 2 more times, because I forgot to reset it. So let me do that. Right
okay, there we go.
So Buffalo is 4th. Buffalo is 4th again. And finally, Buffalo is now 5th. Boston, Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago, Buffalo. They're absolutely crazy.
Boston getting the top pick? Oh, that would just be...
Yeah, that
would be brutal.
That was definitely not the greatest of things that happened there. So
it's okay.
That's okay. We'll run it again next week.
Yep. Here's the good news. Right now, the Sabres are in that third position under 11.5% chance to get the first pick. The only, looking at the standings, Nashville's 1 point ahead of us in reverse order, meaning they have 1 more point. And then there's about a 5-point gap. So it looks like the Sabres will probably stay within that top 4 more than likely. I mean, I think the most we can really lose is maybe one or two more spots, right, in terms of the negative way. So it may not be imperative to get the top pick this year because by most people's accounts, Matthew Schaefer is a defenseman who's the number one pick who I'm not really interested in taking another defenseman like that, but
No.
would be
Not at
nice
all.
to get the first pick because then they could take whoever the best forward is and not worry about it. But it's not imperative to me for them to do that. And
No, as long as they stay, second, third, or fourth, I'm perfectly fine. I don't even want to give Adams the choice of taking Schaefer. Like,
this is true. Yeah, and the other thing is, maybe this pick could be used as a bait to get that top player we've been yearning for, like an Elias Pettersson or someone like that. Maybe could entice a Vancouver to move off of him, right? That if they're looking for a rebuild. But listen, that's stuff we're going to talk about in the summer. We're going to get into. But yeah, the Tankathon is back, ladies and gentlemen. So
I am
back
not
and
a
better
fan
than
of
ever.
trading. If it is anywhere fourth, third, or second, or even first, I'm not a fan of trading that at that point because you have players that I personally like. One of them is because of you. Is Porter Martone. The other one is going to be James Higgins. You have to have those type of players that are going to come in right away and be, and Porter Martone, like you say all the time, is a Kachuk clone. So even if
how good does that sound, right? Yeah.
Even if he doesn't score goals right away, for that physical presence at the wing, sign me up.
Yep. Well, the other thing too about you mentioned Higgins is what qualities those guys they say they have: leadership, playing with passion, and those are the kind of things that this team needs, right? I need guys that are going to be all in, right? I don't need a really talented forward who might be a quote diva, right? I want a guy to come in that is not going to accept losing, that's going to play with an edge, right?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of players I want on this team. Like that's what, there's always a thing that Adams talks about that I agree with, but it also irks me. It's the way he says it. I want a team that's hard to play against. Well, but then you won't get physical, like physicality on this roster. Like that's part of being a team to play difficult against. Right.
Ryan Reeves is sitting out there for free. All you got to do is pay him, and you're not even great. You're being real hard to play against.
Matt, just to bring him in to show the young guys a thing or two. That's it. Even if he plays 30 games, like, okay, we're playing Florida tonight with all their nastiness on their roster. Okay, Ryan Reeves, we're activating you tonight. You're going to be around tonight, right? That's the kind of team that he would play against instead of, let's say if it's, I don't know, even Columbus has guys like that. Matthew Olivier, he's another guy, tough guy, right? Correct. Like, okay, let's put him in there tonight. Like, there's just certain things. I agree with you. And again, just a veteran who's been on some really, really good teams over the years could teach some of the young guys a thing or two and say, hey, I've been here, kid. I played with the Knights in their big playoff runs. I've been in places like Toronto, tough places to play, pressure cookers, right? So, those things matter, but not to our GM. It doesn't.
No. It doesn't seem like it does, and I you said it earlier in the show. I really hope that one of the changes that is made is they get rid of Wolford and Appert and all those guys, and let Lindy Ruff pick his own staff and not be stuck with the guys that are here. Everybody's like, oh, Seth Appert's the second coming, and he's going to be the next great coach, and really. His power play is one of the worst in the league. His special teams is horrible. And what are we doing? Like, why is I get it, but I get wanting to give guys chances and things like that. But let Lindy Ruff bring in some of these experienced coaches that he knows that he's coached with, and allow him to build his own staff so that he can do what he needs to do to bring the Sabres to a playoff, because if that, and that goes to the whole thing about trying, right? Like a couple of years ago, Kevin Adams did one deal. It didn't really try and take a big swing and get into the playoffs. Fine, however I feel is out. But last year didn't do anything. This year changed the coach, but basically said you're stuck with our guys. Okay, sure. I mean that can't be put in a great spot for Lindy. Like that's another thing I blame on Kevin Adams is not allowing him to. When you got rid of Don Granado, all those other guys should have been let go as well. Like and
Yep.
Seth Appert should have stayed in Rochester. He should have not been brought up and let Lindy pick his own staff. If he ends up picking Seth Appert, fine, but don't stick those things down his throat and be like, these are the guys you have to go with. So I mean, we'll see what happens this summer with that, but they have to change.
Absolutely.
It has to change. It has to change.
Yeah, there has to be significant changes, or just a change in mindset just has to be there. And we'll get into this more in our next podcast, but there's a very big player up in Toronto that has kind of said he's going to test the free agent market.
Yep.
And this is where I need to see. I'm not saying the Sabres could sign Mitch Marner, okay? But I need to know that they took their best shot for it. Even if they said, listen, we offered him 7 years and $13-14 million, and he said no. Okay.
Right.
As long as, there needs to be, and also that sends a message to the team that they're trying to get better. Those things matter. Listen, just to circle back with the Bills. Remember Bean says, Josh Allen texts me all the time when we make moves, or he's all over that stuff. He's all over the
doing
place.
25. He's doing 25 mock drafts a day, apparently. Like,
so these players care. Like they really do. Most do, right? And you don't think these players are watching when Kevin Adams makes moves in the offseason? Of course they are. I mean, if Rasmus Dahlin's in Sweden and he hears that Mitch Marner signs with the Sabres, I mean, he's going to be like that's great.
Was it Botterill or was it the last year of Tim Murray that we went after Stamkos? Ended up offering him the 7 years for $12 million, and he stayed in Tampa for the $8 million because of tax breaks. And I get it.
You want to hear something wild?
Yeah.
I almost wish we bring Tim Murray back at this point. I feel like right now's the time. Like he's got that. You know what it is? He's got this. He's got the mindset. He's aggressive. Like we need that kind of guy with the prospects we had to say, you know what? I'm going to go out there and make some things happen. And he did. Say what you want about him. He did get Evander Kane. He did get not Linus Ullmark. He got Ryan O'Reilly. He got
Robin
Leonard. He was aggressive, but maybe he did a little too early when he first got Eichel. We needed him later in the process to allow the guys to develop. Maybe now's that time. We need that type of guy, that type of GM to come in and says, hey, listen, I'm going to go out there and make it happen. So really quickly, Matt, schedule, not me again.
Yeah,
we know what the season is. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump ahead.
Nope, you're good. You're good. And that's the next thing we were getting to. So
tonight we have Jack Robert Eichel is coming back into town today.
Well, an hour and a half from now is puck drop. An hour and a half from
now.
Oh,
hour and a half. It's that. Oh, okay. Yeah, listen, I'm on the West Coast. That's early. So yeah, we got an early game against the Vegas Knights, and then we travel to Boston on Monday, and then we're at Utah on Thursday, another young team that's got some pretty exciting young players. So best, again, broken record, but I'm looking to see, the old thing, I want winners, right? I think Aaron Glenn, the Jets coach, said it. I mean, that's what I'm kind of looking for here with the Sabres. Like, I want I want to see who are the guys that are in right now? Who are the guys that are giving those efforts? Who are the guys that, right? Little consistency things, trying to see how Norris progresses, maybe to see how Benson progresses. Just let's see some little flashes of right. I like to see Tage get to 40, things like that. That's
flashes of brilliance.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you. That's perfect. So and then next week we have another early game on Saturday at Minnesota, but we'll get to that next week. But then we got a very busy week after that. So, but we'll see. I mean, it's a tough game today. Would love to see them knock off the Knights. As far as our schedule goes, I just want us to win all the home games just for the great fans that still continue to go into that arena and deal with this mess called the Buffalo Sabres. They deserve it. So
I must have been a masochist I must be a masochist because when I went to that game, it was like my head was in my hands more than it was. More than my hands were above my head. So
believe me, I was watching that game. I said I can only imagine Diegert's reaction at this point right now at this moment in time, and it was probably like this, right? Yeah.
So we want to thank everybody here. We want to thank everybody here for joining us. Definitely check out Third Manageable tonight. Coast to Coast on Wednesday night. No One to Blame on Monday. Thursday with Chase and Data. And then we'll be back Buffalo Blueprint on Sunday also. And then definitely check out us next Saturday morning. And everybody else, Ryan?
It's good to be seen. Great to have you here, Matt, as always. Go Sabres.
Absolutely. Go Sabres.